I apologize in advance since I'm not a good writer, but I'll do my best to share my experience. To better paint the picture, here is a description of myself at the time of this incident, 3 years ago. 5'5", 26-year-old woman, medium-length bleach blonde hair, curvy 175 pounds, wearing black high-waisted tights and a pink crop top. 3 years ago, I was walking home late at night from my friend's house. It was dark, and at the time, I lived in a rough part of a large city. I've had many sketchy situations that I've gotten myself out of, so I guess I felt sort of invincible, like nothing truly scary could happen to me. When I walk alone, I always stay very alert and aware of my surroundings for my own safety, just in case. About halfway home and roughly 10 minutes to my apartment, I noticed a van started tailing me. I was used to this since in my city it's very common for a young woman in a rough area to get propositioned for sex. It's embarrassing how desensitized to this I was. I did my usual and crossed the road so that I would be walking beside the traffic heading in the other direction. I wasn't scared, just annoyed. The van then turned down a side street, then back onto the road I was on and pulled up to me. At this point, I still wasn't scared. Again, this has happened so many times and it never mattered if I was wearing something that showed more skin or if I was wearing a winter coat zipped from just below my chin all the way down to my ankles. That area is notorious for that type of activity. I decided to be firm and told the person sternly, I'm not interested. I noticed there were 2 men in the van. They looked almost identical and may have been twins or brothers. Both men had a very, very dark complexion, dark eyes and short dark hair. The van didn't move. I was super annoyed and crossed the road to get away. At this point, I figured this would be enough for them to stop following me. They didn't. They kept circling back every time I crossed the road. I've never had to put that much effort into getting a horny pervert to leave me alone, so this is when I started feeling unsafe. They zipped by me at the speed the traffic was flowing in, and I yelled for them to fuck off. I thought it finally worked. It had been there 3 minutes and I hadn't seen the van, so I thought I was in the clear. Just in case, I pulled my phone out and was getting ready to call my sister that I lived with. Just then, the van pulled up to me very quickly, and before I could even blink, one of the men jumped out of the van, opened the back door and approached me quickly in an aggressive manner, as if he was about to scoop me up and throw me into the vehicle. The traffic in that area is very inconsistent. It was dead, and I imagine this is what they were waiting for. Just as the man was about to place his hands on me, I tilted my phone and said, "You are being filmed in my live video chat. I gave my friends your license plate number and the police have been notified." I was so scared, but I didn't let it show. I stayed as calm as I could. The man paused like he was considering if I was bluffing or telling the truth, so I tilted the phone more as if to give the fake audience a better look at him. He then jumped into the van and they sped off. I have never been the same since that night. I'm afraid of walking alone now, even in the daytime. Stay safe out there. 2 creeps in a van? Let's not ever meet. I hope karma finds you both soon. Years ago, man am I old, but let's say mid-1990s, I worked as a woodland firefighter while in the Army Reserves. I worked as a spotter. Basically, I was stationed in a giant fire tower in the middle of a national park. My job was just as it sounds. I would use binoculars and look out for fire, smoke, other telltale signs of fire. My nearest compadre was 5 miles or so from me. My days consisted of working my shift, taking long walks around the fire tower, being on the lookout for anyone who might be having illegal fires, looking out for wildlife, and staying afoot of bears and wolves. The way our shifts worked back then was 1 week on, 1 week off, so we slept in the towers, cooked our food, etc. One day, I came across an illegal bear trap. I had several ranger friends, and I safely set off the trap, then picked it up to take it to the ranger station on one of my treks out for food in my Jeep. Poaching is illegal in the park, and carried a big fine even back then, and some jail time, but it did not stop the poachers from trying. I heard rifle shots and headed back for my fire tower. We did have a rifle in the tower, to be used in cases of emergencies. Just a few months back, a fellow spotter had been mauled to death by a grizzly, so each tower had been outfitted with a rifle. I looked with my binoculars but did not see anything out of the ordinary. I radioed my coworker Ben, an older guy in the adjacent tower. He hadn't heard anything today but had came across a few traps himself. That night, after a dinner of beans and toast, I was writing to my future wife when I heard the rumbling of a truck. Thinking it may be Ben, and occasionally he made the trek over. We could crack open a soda and chew the fat for a bit. Instead, I saw 4 men with rifles get out the truck. One looked around and leaned up against the truck, while the other 3 grabbed traps and began to set them up. I grabbed the rifle and my lantern and headed down the stairs. I was only 21, a farmer's son from a rural Virginia farming town, and even with 1 deployment behind me, I was naive. I should have called it into the Rangers, but instead, I thought I could talk some sense into 4 dangerous men. I barely got a, "Hey, what are you doing?" out of my mouth before I was roughly shoved by rough hands. My lantern fell, and I heard it crack. The rifle was kicked away from me, and I felt the breath leave my chest when I was violently kicked in the stomach. I barely had caught my breath when I was grabbed by 2 of the men, and was shoved forward into the woods. It seemed like we walked for miles, but in reality it was only probably a mile. However, I noticed that there were no sounds. In the forest, it is rarely silent. It's a cacophony of sounds, even at night. Owls, the wolves, crickets. But on this night, nothing. Suddenly, I was shoved onto my knees and I felt hot tears well up. I thought of my parents, my little sister and brother, and my fiancé who were back home in Virginia. I heard the rack of a gun and I shut my eyes and prayed. Suddenly the night erupted. However, it was the sounds of sirens. Those of the forest rangers, and behind them in his pickup, Ben, who had tried to radio me that he heard a car's engine and came to my tower when I didn't reply. The poachers were arrested. Ben drove me back to the tower. I was still shaking. He didn't lay into me for not following procedure, just said, "That was close, kid." I ended up leaving the job months later to take a job closer to home, but I never ran into any more poachers during the rest of my time. I kept in contact with Ben for a while, sent him a wedding invite and then a photo of my firstborn son in 1997. However, as time usually does, we lost track of one another, and a few years back I googled him. He would have been 75 or so to discover he passed away a few years back. Don't know whatever came of those poachers, but I know I never want to meet them again. For context, I'm a 26-year-old male and have a larger build. Not fat, but also not muscular. I just have a bigger look to me. I have lived an unusual life and have been through many iffy situations with people, so I am not frightened easy by odd or wacky people. I also can defend myself pretty well in a fight. I live in a city with pretty bad crime and work on a sketchy side of town. While not the most crime-filled, it is still sketchy and you get shady people once in a while. I also am a fan of the dark life, so I love walking at night and do not get really scared. I work a second shift job, and it is my duty as one of the supervisors to lock the gates after the sun goes down and all the day shift people are gone. Our work is enclosed with a fence that has barbed wire on top. Just a few days ago I was walking close to the gate. I was coming from the far side of the parking lot after throwing something away in the dumpster. As I was walking to the gate, I could see a strange man on a bike. It is dark and cold out this time of year at 8 p.m., so I found it odd to see a man that was at least 30 or 40 on a bike. But I carried on, as it could just be a man going to work or leaving work who doesn't have a car. And as I continue to walk, I see he is now doing circles in the road at the end of the little driveway that leads to the fence. Now my guard is up, as this is strange to me. As I reach the fence, he has now set down the bike and is looking at me and walking towards me. He is shaking like I have seen many people on drugs do before. I am still not super worried, as like I said, I have dealt with many shady people before. I close one side of the gate quick and rush to the other, swinging it closed. The gate is locked by a chain and a padlock, so I grab both sides of the chain. Before I can get the padlock in though, the man sticks his hands through the fence and grabs me by the shirt. At this point I yell, "Get the fuck off me before I beat your ass." As it was, I was holding the fence closed with the chains while he grabbed me and yelled, "I'll fucking kill you." The only thing going through my mind was how I was going to get the upper hand on this dude, and if I should fight him or wrap the damn chain around his neck. I was fortunate, and a police officer just turned the block as this was going down, and he flipped his lights on quickly and took the man down and cuffed him. While the man was in his car, he questioned me and got a statement, and I was on my way. So, to the druggie who wanted to kill me, even though I know I'll run into more one way or another, let's not meet again. Stay safe out there, y'all.